Welcome to the Wealthy Woman's Podcast, a podcast for high-achieving women who are great at making money but struggle to build wealth. You'll learn how to take control of your money, increase your net worth, and make more. Ladies, it's time to create a life with more money and more freedom. Let's dive in. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back. Again, I'm so excited that you're here. So today we are going to dive into the power of planning your spending ahead of time. So in episode number 9, we talked about why strict budgets don't work. And this is kind of the answer to having a strict budget. This is what you want to do instead. So today we're going to talk about why people actually resist creating spending plans. We're also going to look at why they are so powerful, why you should do them ahead of time. This one is a huge point that I'm going to make today. They must be done ahead of time, and how to create a spending plan that actually works, one that actually helps you to reach your financial goals, and how to create one that you'll actually stick to. So I have to tell you, it is spring, and this is the first day that we're getting our lawn cut. And so if you hear some loud noises while I'm recording this podcast, just know it's spring and the guy is outside doing the lawn. Okay. I hope you can't hear it, but just in case you can, that's what's going on. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to it. So we're going to talk about first why people resist creating spending plans. I hear it all the time. I just don't see myself budgeting. Remember, we're not talking about budgets. We're talking about spending plans, non-restrictive, intentional spending plans that you create ahead of time. But a lot of people resist this because they think it takes away their freedom. They also don't want to feel deprived. They also don't want to feel controlled. And some people just say, Jermaine, I just don't know how. I just don't know where to begin. And so I'm just not going to do it. So they resist. So let's tackle the whole, I don't want to lose my freedom part of it. Here's the thing. Once I really learned how to create non-restrictive spending plans ahead of time, I had way more freedom when it came to my money than I ever did when I was just winging it and I didn't have a plan for my money. I promise you, it is one of the most liberating things I've ever done. Because it was the first time that I was actually making conscious decisions about how I wanted to spend my money. And I did it in a way that aligned to my goals and my values, to my financial goals and my lifestyle values. Okay. So it was so liberating. It gave me freedom. And most of my clients feel the exact same way. When they actually learn how to do it in a way that is non-restrictive, then they actually feel like they have more freedom when it comes to their money. The other part is around feeling deprived, right? Or feeling controlled. The reason why people feel this way is because they're using strict budgets, right? They're putting themselves on a strict budget. And remember, episode number 9, we talked about why that doesn't work. Right? It does not work. So we are not going to do that. Of course, you feel deprived and controlled when you are telling yourself all the things you can't do and you're not putting in anything that's fun, anything that feels good. You're just white knuckling it and using a bunch of willpower, right? We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. And the other piece around feeling controlled, here's what I want you to know about that. When you don't have a plan for your money, you feel out of control. And when you do decide that I am going to take back my power and I'm going to decide intentionally what I want to do with my money, you are the only person in control. Now, sometimes, again, when we put ourselves on a really strict budget and then we expect our future self to follow through, your future self does feel like, hey, I'm being controlled by this spending plan or this budget that was created last month or last week. And so I don't want to follow it because it's too restrictive and I'm feeling controlled. But here's the thing. The spending plan is not human. It cannot control you. You are in control of what goes onto the spending plan. And so my answer to this is to not make it too restrictive. Still give yourself freedom to have spending money. Give yourself freedom to be saving towards the things that are most important to you, like vacations. So don't try to make it so restrictive that you feel controlled and deprived, right? That is not the point of all of this. And then when it comes to not knowing how, I'm going to share a lot of tools and strategies for you today. Honestly, inside my group coaching program, my money coaching program, the Wealthy Woman's Academy, I tell you exactly how to do this, and you can actually get my support and my help. So if you really want to know how to create non-restrictive, intentional spending plans that you can actually follow and that will actually help you to create the life you want with more financial security, more control, and more peace and freedom around money, then you should invest in yourself and consider joining me inside the Wealthy Woman's Academy, where you can get that personal support by being in a community and actually having a money coach to talk to you and show you how to do this the proper way. Okay, so now that we've talked about why people resist it, let's talk about why having a monthly spending plan is so powerful. So first of all, I recommend that you do this monthly because that is how most of our bills are paid. We pay utilities monthly. We pay our car notes monthly. Many of our bills are paid monthly. So it just makes sense that you create your plan for the entire month. That makes it where it's not too frequent and it's not too spread apart. That is why it's important that you do it monthly. And remember, we can set financial goals all we want, but if we don't have a plan to make those goals reality, those goals are simply wishes. And having a spending plan is the map, is the key to actually making your goals a reality. And having a spending plan gives you freedom to spend on things that truly matter. So remember, we want to spend in a way that feels good to us. We want our values to be prevalent in our spending plan. We want to see that, hey, if vacationing and making memories with your family is important to you, then that should show up in your spending plan. That should be reflected in your spending plan. And when you have a monthly spending plan, it actually puts you in control of your money instead of wondering where it went. I hear it all the time, Jermaine, I have no idea where all my money goes. And tax season, I'm sure all of you, we just finished tax season. Right now, it's the end of April. And so many of us just filed our taxes. And a lot of times when we see that adjusted gross income, we wonder, we scratch our head and we say, where did all my money go? I can't believe I made that much money. Well, when you start doing intentional spending plans, you're going to feel like you made that much money because you're going to know exactly where it's going. You're going to know exactly where it all went, and you're going to feel in control of it. And you're going to be able to see the progress that you've made. You're going to see, oh yes, it does feel like I made this much money because look at my savings. Look at my investments. Look how much debt I was able to pay off. Look at this vacation I was able to take my family on. So you're going to know exactly where your money is going. And it's going to feel like, yes, I know exactly where it's going. And I do feel like I made that much money. And then it's going to also help you to have more money. So here's what I mean by that. Many times when I work with my clients and they create their spending plan and they account for everything they want to spend their money on, they notice that they actually have a chunk of money left. Maybe it's $500, maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's $1,500, maybe it's more, depending on their income and depending on their expenses. And on paper, they're like, I never ever end the month with an additional $1,000. I never ever end the month with an additional $500. I don't know where this money has been going, right? And so they get to see on paper, like if you actually pay all your bills, you give yourself spending money, you buy your groceries, you pay some debt, you save, you invest, you should have about this much left every single month. And then when they see that on paper and then they live it out, they actually follow through with their plan and they see, oh yes, I do have this much money left over. Where has it been going all these years? Well, I'll tell you where it's been going. It's just been disappearing because you didn't have a purpose for it. You weren't paying attention. And so when you do have that monthly spending plan, it's going to feel like you got a raise. You're going to feel like you have more money because when you give your money a purpose, when you give your money direction, you have more of it. It stays with you. It doesn't just evaporate into the environment. You don't overspend it. You actually have it, which is amazing. It's such an amazing feeling to experience that. Now let's talk about why it's so important that you actually do this ahead of time. Now let's talk about why it's so important that you actually create your spending plan ahead of time. For some reason, some people think that they can do their spending plan or their budget after the fact. Like they spend, and then they go back and kind of do an audit of what they spent. That is not effective, not whatsoever, because you at that point have no control over what you did. Right? If you do it ahead of time, then you get to consciously decide what you're going to spend your money on. So you have all the control at that point. And so if you remember back when I talked about the primitive brain and the prefrontal cortex back in episode 7, if you did not hear that episode, you may want to go back and listen to it because I talked about these two very distinctive parts of your brain. And we talked about how we want the prefrontal cortex to be in charge of your money. And the only way you can do that is if you plan your spending ahead of time. Because remember, the prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that wants to grow. It wants to build wealth. It wants to have all of your financial goals met, right? And so you want to put that part of your brain in charge of your money. And when you do not plan your spending ahead of time, you leave your primitive brain in charge of your money. And remember, the primitive brain is the part of your brain that is like a toddler. It just wants what it wants. It's all about instant gratification. It doesn't care about your long-term wealth. It just wants what it wants in the moment. And so when you do not plan your spending ahead of time, you are leaving the toddler in charge of your money. And we all know what happens when we leave the toddler in charge. They make a mess, right? When you decide that you're going to plan your spending ahead of time and you sit down and you actually decide what you're going to do, then you're putting your prefrontal cortex in charge. So now let's talk about how to actually create a monthly spending plan. Now, remember what I said, the Wealthy Woman's Academy will go way deeper into this and you can actually get support and help doing this if you join the Wealthy Woman's Academy. So consider this your invitation to join. But for today, we're going to talk about some things that really can help you. So one of the things I teach my clients to do is to have a date with their money during the last week of every month. And that is so that you can plan your spending for the next month, for the following month. So let's pretend it's the end of March. So you want to pick a date at the end of March and you want to think about all the things you could possibly spend your money on, all the things you want to possibly spend your money on in April. So you want to do your spending plan during the last week of the month for the following month. And what you're going to do is decide ahead of time how much you want to spend, how much you want to save, how much you want to give, how much you want to pay on your debt, how much you want to invest. You also want to think about what's going on in April. Are there any birthdays? Are there any holidays? Do you need to do anything special for the kids? Do they need a baseball uniform? Are there school pictures happening? Like what is happening? So you just want to give yourself that luxurious amount of space and time the last week of the month to really think about what is happening the following month. You always want to give yourself some wiggle room, give yourself a cushion, give yourself some spending money, give yourself cash that you can do whatever you want with, that you don't necessarily have to decide what you're going to do with it, but you just know I'm going to give myself this much money to just do whatever I want with. So if you're working to save or if you're working to pay off debt, you want to intentionally decide how much you're going to pay on your debt, how much you're going to put in your emergency fund, how much you're going to put in your travel fund, and when you're going to do it, right? So you want to look at how many paychecks do I have coming in, and when do I want to pay all my bills? What paycheck will I pay all my bills out of? You just want to make it really clear and plain so that when it's time to execute on it, all you have to do is whip out your paper, or if you're using an app, open up your app and just say, okay, I just got paid. Here are the things I'm going to do this week with this paycheck, right? That is how you create an intentional, non-restrictive spending plan. It's actually really, really easy. The first few months may be a little bit more challenging because you're learning something new, but after about 60 to 90 days, you really get good at it and you can create them pretty quickly. You just want to give yourself grace and stay committed to the process. And then all that's left to do is follow through with the plan. And again, all you need to do is say, okay, this paycheck, I'm going to do this paycheck, I'm going to do that. Now, I will be honest and say following through with your spending plan is a lot harder than creating it, right? Creating the plan, especially once you get the hang of it, is fairly easy. But actually following through on it is challenging because you're still human and your primitive brain is still going to offer urges to not follow the plan. Your primitive brain, remember, it's like a toddler. It's going to want what it wants in the moment. But remember, you've created this plan using your prefrontal cortex, the part of you that wants to grow, the part of you that wants to build wealth, the part of you that wants to have financial security, the part of you that wants to create a life with more freedom and more peace and control around your money. And you want to create this plan with love for your future self. So remember, we're not making a strict budget here. When you remind yourself of that, when you're feeling like you want to veer off from that plan, remind yourself that this plan is what's best for you. This plan is not too restrictive, and then follow through with it. And this is also what I help my clients do in the Wealthy Woman's Academy. I help them to follow through on the commitments that they make to themselves, because the trust you have with yourself is so important. And when you follow through on those commitments, you become a different person. You become a wealthier woman, because not only are you keeping your commitments to yourself, but your net worth is growing. Your bank account is growing. Your debt is decreasing. You are literally building wealth every single month. Okay, so let's go ahead and recap what we talked about today. We talked about why people resist spending plans. And remember, I debunked a lot of those reasons. Spending plans do not take away your freedom. They actually give you more freedom. We also talked about why spending plans are so powerful. Remember, they put you in control of your money. That is why they're so powerful. You no longer have to wonder where your money goes. It actually puts you in control and you feel like you actually got a raise. You feel like you actually have more money. We also looked at why it's so important to do it ahead of time. Remember, it's because we want to put our prefrontal cortex in charge of our money. And when we do not plan our spending ahead of time, we leave our primitive brain in charge. And our primitive brain is only concerned about the here and now. It's only concerned about instant gratification. It doesn't care about your goals to build wealth and to leave a legacy for your children and to have financial security. It could care less about that. And so the way we're going to really get to that place where we want to be is by putting our prefrontal cortex in charge. And lastly, we talked about how to create it. We talked about having a date with your money at the end of every single month and look out into the following month and consciously decide what you want to do with your money and then follow through on it. I hope this was helpful for you. And remember, if you want support, if you want help with this, you are invited to join me inside the Wealthy Woman's Academy, and this is what we work on. We work on not only the mindset tools of building wealth, but we also work on the strategies, because you need both. You need to have a new way of thinking, and you also have to have the strategies to make it happen, but you also need the support to actually follow through on the strategies. Okay, so I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, before you go, if you're ready to create a life with more money and more freedom, then you're invited to join the Wealthy Woman's Academy, my signature coaching program where you'll learn how to take control of your money and build wealth without sacrificing your lifestyle. To get started, head on over to JermaineFoley.com. That's Jermaine with a G, Foley.com. See you there.